Phantom Liberty's marketing push has started off with an absolute bang at the Xbox showcase over the weekend, and tons of new information has just dropped. So in this video, we'll be doing a comprehensive analysis of the brand new trailer and tying it all into every single tidbit of new details we have about Cyberpunk 2077's only expansion that is looking to heavily readapt the game. Let's waste no time and jump straight into the analysis. Our first frame shows V trying to manage the shakes associated with her battle against the relic chip that is lodged in her head. When it comes to where PL might pick up during the story, media did mention during their hands-on time with the game that the result of Phantom Liberty could lead to a different ending to the base game, confirming that this expansion does not take place post-ending. Now, will PL release with new endings, or are we limited to the same endings that we currently have? That I'm not so sure about, but we may learn more details on this in the coming months. On the bottom of this frame, we can see the disclaimer that this footage is captured on a high-end PC, and CDPR have actually changed up the requirements of this expansion, large in part due to the decision to leave behind the last generation of consoles. I'm going to show the new requirements on screen, feel free to pause and browse, but it does include specs for the latest ray tracing overdrive mode. You will also notice on this panel that the storage space required for Phantom Liberty is a whopping 70 gigabytes. Just to give some perspective, Blood and Wine, the massive expansion for The Witcher, comes in at just 35 gigabytes. We'll get to the new district shortly, but this expansion will likely not only add content to the new area of the map, but will also feature new quests and gigs throughout Night City based on this colossal file size. CDPR hasn't clarified if this 70 gigabytes is for sure only for PL and not for any other updates to the base game, but based on this graphic, it does look like it's for Phantom Liberty, since they've made the distinction in the title. Anyways, Silverhand and V are talking about what will happen next, presumably meaning that they are offered little hope in terms of saving V, since the damage done by the relic seems to be irreversible. Speaking of the relic, there is a brand new skill tree in Phantom Liberty known as the Relic skill tree. Relic points for the relic tree are also different from the standard skill points, although we're still unclear on how to get these at the moment. CDPR has also reworked abilities and buffs as a departure from percentage-based stat buffs to more unique class-based skills, a much needed change from the pretty vanilla current skill tree. Each attribute now has one massive skill tree, versus a few different specializations of skill trees that offer tiered perk options. Again, something that will address the cumbersome nature of speccing into certain attributes. In the next scene, we're met by Songbird, a character that was data mined quite some time ago, and one that we noticed in the very first teaser trailer. Songbird is an NUSA intelligence analyst, as she mentions in the trailer, but she also communicates with us on a chip similarly to how Johnny communicates with us. Songbird offers V a solution to her relic problem and hints that she can save her. Gameplay footage shown has Songbird as Relic Packet 32, and we don't see a ton of Silverhand dialogue in general in the snippets of footage provided by CDPR, which hints that he's given up at least some mental real estate to Songbird for at least this introductory section. A further description of Songbird straight from the Phantom Liberty site mentions that she's a talented netrunner and President Meyer's right hand. There are only few who can keep up with her abilities, and her talent makes her a valuable asset to the NUSA. In the next scene, we get our first look at Dogtown, which is as we expected behind the gates and also known as a reimagining of the combat zone from the lore. Influencers and media who have gotten some time with the game at Summer Games Fest places the new district in Pacifica in this general region, which we had mentioned as the most likely segment what feels like eons ago. I know a ton of people were confused as to why there's almost nothing to do in Pacifica, and now we can confirm that it was always intended to be a place built out based on the expansion. I did also want to give an idea of the scale based on this structure in the background of this scene, as I did mention that we've seen this a couple times in the teasers of the past. This point of interest gives you a really solid reference point. Really love this new scene as we are introduced to two new things. First, we are introduced to Barghest, the name of the policing faction within Dogtown. If you commit a crime in Dogtown, it's this faction that will be hunting you down instead of the police. Again, media who have had hands-on time with the game have mentioned that the police do not spawn out of the air anymore, and the wanted level tiers seem to be vehicles and motorcycles for the first tier, all the way up to max stack AVs for the last tier, Tier 5. CDPR has mentioned that Tier 5 means that bosses will start to spawn, likely the top ranks of the max stack officers and their vehicles, and that if you commit crimes in bustling areas like Corporal Plaza, police will respond quicker as it is a wealthier area. In any case, Barghest is hunting down Rosalind Myers, who we have now confirmed is this woman in the trailer, and with the help of V and Songbird is looking to escape after crashing within this lawless district. Barghest and their logo is a nice homage to the Witcher enemies of the same name, in case you didn't know. Now let's move on to my favorite character in this trailer, This is Colonel Hansen, the leader of Dogtown, who rules with an iron fist, at least according to his online bio. He carved out this patch of land known as Dogtown for himself during the Unification War and intends to keep it with the help of his loyal Barghest soldiers. Kurt Hansen's military background doesn't mean he favors violence as a solution, and his keen intellect and strategic foresight makes him a formidable foe. In the next scene here, we see the aftermath of the crash of Space Force 1 that we first saw in the original teaser trailer. This is the AV of Rosalind Myers, the former CEO of Militech and the current president of the new United States of America. Currently in her third term, Myers is in the inevitable position of running a country at a time where power is wielded by corporations. Her crash triggers a power struggle with far-reaching consequences. You can actually see where this crash is relative to the sign that featured Hansen here. The next scene is one of my favorites and shows a Barghest soldier with the Barghest AV flying in the background. It does look like they have kept all Militech equipment for themselves. How they got a hand on this, who really knows? Flipping over to the next scene, we have Hansen looking over some screens, which looks to have the Pacifica Sportsplex schematic on it. In fact, looking at the current map from the top down almost guarantees this. New Cyberware and Cyberware reworks is a massive feature of the Phantom Liberty expansion, and Hansen is sporting some really interesting looking augmentations. Based on the latest impressions, armor is now tied to Cyberware, meaning that you can wear whatever you want without worrying about this overall stat. Another massive new change is that when you get a new piece of Cyberware, you'll be able to see the Ripper Dog animations much like how we saw in the 2018 gameplay trailer when we visited Vic. Beyond this encounter in the actual game, installing Cyberware was disappointingly a simple menu button press. I'm really glad they fixed this. If you install too many augmentations, you'll also get debuffs, but we don't know exactly if cyberpsychosis is on the table yet. Certain skills and perks can also be taken to allow you to install more, which is very reminiscent of Edgerunners and David's use of immunosuppressants. There are also tributes to some Edgerunners members in some Cyberware options that media who got to play recognized, which is a great little touch from CDPR. Solomon Reed is shown in the next scene powering on some sort of device. CDPR looks like they're giving more characters a larger range of clothing choices, which is a nice departure from making everyone have the same clothes from beginning to end, which throws you out of the experience and makes the world feel less organic. It's the little things that show CDPR are crafting a believable and grounded narrative. Let's talk a bit about Solomon Reed. Reed is an experienced FIA agent who's proven himself countless times in covert intelligence missions. He knows better than anyone how to tap into the countless web of spies and netrunners, how to extract information, and how to break into even the most tightly guarded places. His loyalty and sense of duty is difficult to shake. I find it interesting that his bio mentions that his loyalty is difficult to shake, but not impossible. In the next scene, we're introduced to yet another new character and someone who looks like they're going to be one of my personal favorites, and this is Alex. Alex is a shapeshifter who can augment her appearance with Cyberware. Throwing it back to this teaser trailer, it looks like our player character might get some similar tech to this, and that likely means we're going to be infiltrating some Barghest strongholds in the story. The background appears to be this memorial in front of a tree in Dogtown that we can see a bit more clearly in this newly released image. As for Alex's bio, she was once an aspiring braindance actress and was recruited by the NUSA's Federal Intelligence Agency by Reed. A talented shapeshifter, she also happens to have a mean streak that her time in Dogtown did nothing to temper. As long as she's playing a part, her true personality won't peek through. Just as a side note, when it comes to these bios, there's a section that shows authorized by, but it's missing a name. This expansion looks like it's going to get messy with who to trust, so are we really to believe these bios? In the next scene, we see the entrance to the stadium in Pacifica with a sign that says "Welcome to K9", alongside some of the ads that we know and love. There's even a few new ones in here like Rough Tread and an ad for the Mantis Blades. Swimming does seem to be a part of some of the story beats in PL, and it's hinted that we might have to swim to reach Rosalind Myers and her marooned AV. There are also some scenes in the gameplay snippets that show us discovering Myers, and struggling to tell her that we're actually on her side. The scene also clarifies that this explosion happens after the AV has crashed, kind of debunking my theory that there were multiple ways that the AV had gone down, and that V might actually be on the AV before this happened. According to those who got hands on time, the event of rescuing Myers takes place around an hour into the expansion. A Militech AV shining a spotlight within this structure to help find Myers is shown next as V peers around a corner. And V can also be seen assisting Myers on her escape by attempting to call an elevator. One of my absolute favorite parts of this trailer is the homage to the spider tank in Ghost in the Shell. This tank has a pretty devastating energy beam, which looks like a juiced up version of the Militech Centaurs. Very cool decision from Cyberpunk to infuse some fan favorite aspects from the long lineage of genre greats as fanservice that fits into the world. This thing looks seriously pissed off as it's hunting you down as you attempt to help Myers escape. It does look like you get separated from Myers in this instance. Here's a clear shot of Dogtown. Again, for scale, we're going to revisit the entrance to the canine here that we saw a bit earlier, and the metal ball that we've seen now a few times. We can also see a pyramid-looking building. This is the Heavy Hearts Club, which can be seen in this exclusive screenshot. It doesn't really look like we're going to be seeing a ton of NPCs walking around, at least on the roads, as this is more of a war zone than anything else. Again, for scale and map perspective, we have Mega Building 4, where Edge Runner's main character David Martinez lived, and 7 in the distance here. Next, we get this really interesting scene and some follow-ups. I'm going to make a bold claim that this is the luxurious Crystal Palace, an orbital getaway for the richest in Night City, hence the drip from Idris here attempting to blend in. I think he looks kinda stupid, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Now this could also be the casino in North Oaks since it was discovered a while ago when players broke out of the map. My money is on the Crystal Palace though. There have just been too many times the palace has been shown in CDPR investor calls for this not to be an element of Phantom Liberty. Later on in the trailer, we also do get to see some sort of orbital air launch pod or entrance. Orbital Air is a space travel service that can actually take you straight to this boisterous orbital facility. Songbird is also dressed up to blend in with some of the wealthy in this scene, which is just more evidence that this is in fact the Crystal Palace, and some espionage type shit is about to go down. Alex is holding up Solomon with his new pistol for not paying his tab, and her face is different than when we first saw her, showcasing her shape-shifting cyberware in action. This pistol also makes multiple appearances, including the front of the cover, and might be the starting equipment we get. Songbird is shown pledging her allegiance to Myers, which looks like it could be a flashback scene or earlier on in the story, based on Myers still being in her fancy uniform, with none of the wear and tear of surviving a crash. I tried really hard to get a good frame of this coin in the next scene, but I just couldn't. V's playing with it as she's being driven into the Badlands by Solomon as we see a few frames later, and it does look like it may be a physical Eddie, and might have Myers on the coin herself, but again, hard to tell. The new police system and MaxTac trucks are shown here, with the MaxTac also being a policing entity in Dogtown and in the rest of Night City. I'm hoping MaxTac won't be the one-dimensional pushovers they were in the base game. We can also see some of their equipment a little bit later. Apparently vehicles do have weapons attached to them now, and we can see some rockets blast open this gate, making an entrance for the MaxTac here. This shows off our potential dive back into the net as a Voodoo Boys member hands you a connection cable. I'm really hoping that we get to see what's behind the net and maybe even continue the Peralez questline, even though some quest designers from CD Projekt Red have actually debunked this. The net is such an underdeveloped aspect of the main quest that surely we'll get a taste of what's behind it. Songbird looks like her physical version here and does not have the artifacting that the relic version of her has, as seen in some of the trailers. And again, I'm willing to bet that this is the Crystal Palace, since it does look extremely fancy. Next scene is probably my favorite in the entire trailer and is a one-on-one encounter with a pissed off Colonel Kurt Hansen as he drives a knife straight into your hand. This guy definitely does not mess around. An interesting scene in what looks like a mall with a ton of overgrowth as V is shooting an LMG is up next. I believe we got another brief gameplay segment of this part of the map in an earlier trailer as well. The most interesting part here is a hologram of dinosaurs. Not really sure if there's some Biotechnica voodoo going on here and we're stepping into Jurassic Park, but who really knows at this point. Regardless, it's a really cool environment with what looks like a decent amount of verticality. The vehicle combat is shown off here as the Barghest are tracking you down, and this is a major feature that CDPR has shown in some of the screenshots as well. If you want to feel for this aspect, there are plenty of mods, and I'm excited to try this one out, especially knowing that we can potentially strap weapons to our vehicles. Just as a note on vehicle combat, motorcycles will allow you to not only use firearms, but you can also use melee weapons off them as well. As far as we know, you won't be able to do the same from cars though. Now if I didn't convince you before that this was the Crystal Palace, then this over-the-top interpretive dance segment definitely lends more credence to it. Let's be honest, only rich douchebags would pay money for this nonsense. Our spider tank friend looks like it has some impaler things on the bottom of its tracks, and that concludes this brilliant trailer, which is honestly probably in my top 3 of all the trailers released for Cyberpunk so far, and there has been a metric ton of them. I do also want to mention that most people who had access to this build mentioned that CDPR has basically gutted the entire game and reworked most of their important systems, and we kinda called this last week when I made this video hinting at the timeline being indicative of an overhaul. That's a consensus from all the reviews I've been reading. So in Phantom Liberty, it seems like there are so many factors at play. Do we trust Songbird, Myers, Hansen, Reed, or Johnny? Only time will tell. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis video. Let me know what you personally thought of the trailer, or any details you might have picked up on. If you're getting prepared for the launch of Phantom Liberty, Do check out my almost 2-hour, 2-part lore series on the entire universe on screen for you. And for everything and anything Phantom Liberty in 2077, consider subscribing as we're on the run up to 100k.